Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English in Advance. I am your host, Jessica, and I am so happy you are here with me today. Whether you are listening on your morning commute while you are cooking dinner or just relaxing at home, I want to say thank you for dedicating this time to yourself and your English journey. Today, we are going to tackle one of the biggest frustrations that English learners face. It is something that happens to almost everyone, from beginners all the way up to advanced speakers. We are going to talk about that awkward silence. We are going to talk about pausing. You know exactly what I mean. You are in the middle of a conversation. You are feeling good. You have a great idea you want to share, and then suddenly your mind goes blank. You stop. You freeze. The person listening to you is waiting, and you start to feel nervous. You try to find the word, but it is gone. That silence feels so loud, doesn't it? Today, we are going to fix that. We are going to talk about how to stop pausing when you speak English and how to train your fluency naturally. I want this episode to be a deep dive. We are not just going to list tips. We are going to practice together. We are going to change how you think about speaking, and we are going to transform that hesitation into confidence. So take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let's get started. First, I want you to understand something very important, which is that pausing is actually natural. Native speakers pause all the time. If you listen to a politician giving a speech, or a friend telling a story in a coffee shop, or even me right now, you will hear pauses. We pause to breathe. We pause to think. We pause to let a point sink in. The problem is not the pause itself. The problem is the kind of pause. There is a difference between a confident pause, which shows you are in control, and a hesitation pause, which shows you are stuck. We want to eliminate the panic pauses. We want to get rid of that feeling where you are searching for a word and the flow of your speech breaks down completely. So why do we pause too much? Usually, it is because of translation. If you are a B1 or B2 learner, you might still be translating from your native language into English in your head. You hear a question, you think of the answer in your first language, and then your brain has to work very hard to turn that into English. That process takes time. It creates a gap. That gap is the pause. To stop pausing, we have to stop translating. I know. That is easier said than done, but today I am going to show you exactly how to do it. Another reason we pause is perfectionism. You want to say the sentence perfectly. You are worried about grammar. You are thinking, should I use the past simple or the present perfect? Is it in or on? While you are checking your grammar mentally, your mouth stops moving. You silence yourself because you are afraid of making a mistake. I want you to let go of that fear right now. Fluency is more important than accuracy when you are trying to keep a conversation going. It is better to keep speaking with a small grammar mistake than to stop completely for 10 seconds to get the grammar perfect. Flow matters. Connection matters. Let's move into our first major technique for stopping pauses, and this is something called chunking. Imagine you are reading a phone number. You do not read every single number individually with a long pause between them. You group them. You say 3 numbers, then 3 numbers, then 4 numbers. That is chunking. We do the same thing with sentences. One of the main reasons learners pause awkwardly is that they try to speak word by word. They treat every word as an island. But English is a connected language. Words love to stick together. When you speak in chunks or phrases, your brain has less work to do. Instead of finding 10 individual words, you only need to find 3 or 4 chunks. Let me give you an example. Listen to this sentence spoken word by word. I want to go to the park. It sounds robotic, doesn't it? It feels slow. Now let's chunk it. I want to go to the park. Do you hear the difference? I want to go is one sound. To the park is the second sound. Try saying that with me. I want to go to the park. Now put it together. I want to go to the park. When you focus on the rhythm and the groups of words, you stop pausing between the little words. You flow over them. Let's practice this with a slightly longer, more B2 level sentence. Imagine you are talking about your job. You want to say, I have been working on this project for 3 months. If you say that word by word, you might get stuck on the grammar. I have been working. But if you chunk it, it becomes easier. I've been working on this project for 3 months. Try that. I've been working. That is a very common chunk. You can use it for anything. I've been working. I've been studying. I've been trying. Once your mouth knows the chunk I've been working, you don't have to think about the grammar. It just comes out. Then the next chunk, on this project, and the final chunk, for 3 months. This brings us to a very important concept called muscle memory. Your mouth has muscles. Just like your legs have muscles for running, your mouth has muscles for speaking English. You need to train these muscles to remember the chunks. When you practice these phrases repeatedly, you don't have to pause to think about them. They become automatic. This is why listening to podcasts like English in Advance is so good for you. You are hearing these chunks over and over again. Your brain is absorbing the pattern. Now, let's talk about what to do when you really do get stuck. Even the best speakers forget words sometimes. The difference is how they handle it. Native speakers use what we call fillers. These are sounds or words that fill the silence while we are thinking. They signal to the listener that we are not finished speaking, we are just processing. But you have to use the right English fillers. In your native language, you have specific sounds you make when you are thinking. Maybe it is an age or an EM sound. If you use your native filler sounds while speaking English, it sounds unnatural. It breaks the illusion of fluency. You need to adopt English fillers. Common English fillers include words like, well, actually, and like. Let's look at how to use these. Imagine someone asks you a difficult question like, what do you think about the economy? You don't have an answer immediately. Instead of sitting in silence, which feels awkward, you can use a filler to buy time. You could say, well, that is a difficult question. That little phrase, well, that is a difficult question, gives you 3 or 4 seconds to think of your real answer, and you are still speaking English. You haven't paused. You have kept the flow going. Another great filler phrase is, let me think about that for a second. If you get stuck, just say it. Let me think. It is honest, it is natural, and it keeps the conversation alive. Or you can use, For example, I went to the cinema last night and, the movie was really interesting. The doesn't really mean anything, but it connects the 2 parts of the sentence smoothly. It acts like a bridge. It stops you from falling into the river of silence. However, be careful not to overuse them. If you say every 2 seconds, it can become distracting. But for now, as you are training your fluency, it is a very useful tool. I want you to try this practice exercise later today. Ask yourself a random question or look at a question prompt online. Before you answer, force yourself to use a filler. Say, "Well, let me see." Or say, "Actually, I have thought about this before." Train your brain to reach for these English filler words instead of just freezing. Another technique to stop pausing is to embrace simplification. This is huge for B1 and B2 learners. Often you pause because you are trying to find a very specific, complicated word that you learned in a textbook. You want to sound smart. You want to say, "The architecture of the building was magnificent." But you forget the word magnificent. So you stop. You search your brain. You get stressed. The silence grows. Instead of searching for the perfect word, use a simple word immediately. If you can't remember magnificent, say beautiful. Say amazing. Say very good. This is called circumlocution, or talking around the word. If you forget the word for receipt, that piece of paper you get when you buy something, don't freeze. Describe it. Say, "The paper from the shop." The paper that shows the price. The person listening will understand you. The goal of language is communication, not showing off your vocabulary. If you can keep the conversation flowing with simple words, you will sound much more fluent than someone who uses big words but pauses for 10 seconds every time they try to find one. Let's practice this. Imagine you are describing your kitchen. You want to talk about the appliance that keeps your food cold, but you forget the word refrigerator or fridge. Do not stop. Immediately say, "The machine for the food," "the cold box," "the place where I put the milk." This skill, the skill of describing what you mean when you don't have the word, is a superpower. It makes you unstoppable. You will never be silenced because you can always explain your way around the missing word. Practice this by looking at objects in your room right now. If you didn't know the name of your lamp, how would you describe it? "The light, the thing that helps me see." This keeps your English active and moving forward. Now let's talk about speed. Many learners think that being fluent means speaking fast. This is a dangerous myth. When you try to speak faster than your brain can process, you will crash. You will stumble. You will make mistakes, and you will eventually have to stop completely to fix them. Real fluency is about rhythm, not speed. In fact, slowing down can actually help you stop pausing. When you speak a little bit slower, you give your brain more time to find the next word before your mouth needs it. It is like buffering a video. If you let the video load a little bit ahead, it plays smoothly. If you watch it too fast, it stops and starts. Try to speak at a deliberate, calm pace. Enunciate your words. Enjoy the sounds of English. When you slow down, you sound more confident. You sound more thoughtful, and magically, the pauses disappear because your processing speed matches your speaking speed. Let's try an experiment. I want you to tell me about your morning routine, but I want you to do it in slow motion, not robot slow, but relaxed slow. I woke up at 7 o'clock. I brushed my teeth. I made a cup of coffee. Notice how easy that feels? There is no pressure. There is no panic. Now you can gradually speed up, but only as much as you can handle without breaking the flow. Connecting words are your best friends for fluency. Words like and, but, so, because. However, these words act like glue. They stick your ideas together so there are no gaps. A lot of learners speak in short, choppy sentences. I like summer. It is warm. I go to the beach. This sounds robotic and leaves lots of spaces for silence between the sentences. Use connecting words to weave them together into a long, smooth ribbon of speech. I like summer because it is warm and I can go to the beach. That is one long, fluid stream. Focus on the word and. It is the simplest connecting word, but it is so powerful. Instead of stopping when you finish a sentence, say and keep going. I went to the market and I bought some fruit and then I came home. This is a technique called the run-on sentence technique. In writing, your teacher might tell you not to write run-on sentences, but in speaking, especially when training fluency, they are great. They keep the engine running. Challenge yourself to speak for 1 minute without stopping, just connecting everything with and so or because. It forces your brain to look ahead to the next idea immediately. Let's discuss the concept of shadowing. This is a practical technique you can use with this podcast right now. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say exactly as they say it, almost at the same time. You are like a shadow, following close behind. When you shadow, do not look at a transcript. Just listen and mimic. Mimic my speed. Mimic my pauses. Mimic my intonation. If my voice goes up, your voice goes up. If I stress a word, you stress that word. This helps stop pausing because it bypasses the grammar part of your brain. You are not constructing sentences. You are just copying sound. It trains your mouth to move continuously. You can try it with this paragraph. I am speaking to you right now. You are listening to me. We are learning English together. Did you try to say it with me? It feels a bit strange at first, like you are talking over someone, but it is incredibly effective for rhythm. Do this for 5 minutes every day. You will notice that your mouth starts to feel more comfortable moving through English sounds without hesitation. Another mental shift we need to make is to stop judging ourselves while we speak. This is the inner critic. The inner critic is that little voice in your head that says, "That was wrong. You sound stupid. Why did you use that word?" That voice creates pauses. Because when you listen to that voice, you stop listening to the conversation. You turn inward. You need to silence the inner critic. Accept that you will make mistakes. It is inevitable. It is part of the process. When you make a mistake, don't stop. Don't apologize. Just keep going. If you say, "He go to the store" instead of "he went to the store," and you realize it a second later, just ignore it. If the listener understood you, you succeeded. Correcting yourself constantly disrupts your fluency more than the mistake itself. Think of speaking English like riding a bicycle. If you wobble a little bit, you don't stop the bike and get off. You just keep pedaling to regain your balance. If you stop pedaling, you fall over. Speaking is the same. Keep pedaling, keep the words coming. The momentum will correct your balance. I also want to encourage you to think in English. This is the ultimate goal. When you think in English, you don't translate, so the pauses disappear. But how do you start thinking in English when you are used to thinking in your native language? You start small. You start with narrating your life. When you are alone, narrate what you are doing. I am opening the door. I am putting on my shoes. I am walking to the bus stop. It looks like it might rain. Do this in your head or out loud if you are alone. By naming the objects and actions around you directly in English, you build a direct link between the concept and the English word. You cut out the middleman, which is your native language. When you see a table, you shouldn't think the word for table in your language and then translate it. You should see the object and immediately think table. Narrating your day is the best way to build this habit. It takes effort. You will forget to do it, but every time you remember, do it for 5 minutes. Over weeks and months, this changes your brain. It makes English the operating system of your thoughts, not just an app you open sometimes. Let's go deeper into the physical aspect of speaking. Sometimes we pause because we run out of breath. It sounds simple, but breath control is part of fluency. If you try to say a very long sentence on one breath, you will start to strain, your voice will get tight, and you will have to stop awkwardly to gasp for air. Native speakers breathe at natural points, usually at the end of a phrase or a chunk. Listen to how I am speaking. I am taking small breaths constantly. I don't wait until I am completely empty. Learn to breathe with a punctuation. When there is a comma in your mind, take a micro breath. This keeps your voice strong and your mind oxygenated. It keeps the rhythm steady. Now, I want to address a specific situation. Being asked a question you don't know the answer to. This often causes the longest, most painful pauses. Someone asks, "What is your opinion on global warming?" You might panic. You might not even have an opinion in your own language yet. It is okay to say you don't know, but say it fluently. Don't just sit there in silence. Have some prepared phrases for this. That is a very interesting topic, but I haven't read much about it. Or, to be honest, I don't know enough to give you a good answer. These are fluent answers. Fluency doesn't mean knowing everything. It means being able to handle any situation smoothly. Even admitting ignorance can be done fluently. Let's visualize a conversation. Imagine you are at a party. You are holding a drink. Someone comes up to you and says, "How do you know the host?" Your brain starts working. You have two options. Option A is you translate. You pause, and then say, "I work with him." Option B is you chunk and flow. You say, "Oh, we work together. We have been colleagues for years." See the difference? The second one feels inviting. It feels warm. To get to option B, practice the most common conversation starters at home. How do you know the host? Where are you from? What do you do? Practice your answers to these common questions until they are automatic. If you have the beginning of the conversation ready, you will feel more confident, and that confidence will carry you through the rest of the chat. We should also talk about the role of listening in stopping pauses. You cannot speak what you haven't heard. To reduce pauses, you need to fill your brain with English patterns, but don't just listen passively. Listen actively. Notice how native speakers connect their words. Notice how they use contractions. They don't say, "I do not know." They say, "I don't know." That is faster. It flows better. Using contractions like I'm, your, didn't, won't is essential for reducing pauses. Full forms like cannot or do not require more effort and sound more formal and stilted. Get comfortable with the lazy way of speaking. It is not bad English, it is fluent English. Another fun exercise is the timer challenge. Set a timer on your phone for 30 seconds. Pick a topic, any topic. Maybe apples. Press start. You have to speak about apples for 30 seconds without stopping for more than 2 seconds. You can say anything. I like apples. Apples are red. Sometimes they are green. I eat them for lunch. My grandmother makes apple pie. It doesn't have to be a brilliant speech. It just has to be continuous. If you stop for more than 2 seconds, you lose. Reset the timer and try again. This forces your brain to prioritize flow over quality. It puts you in survival mode. And surprisingly, when you stop trying to be perfect, your English often gets better because you are more relaxed. As you get better at this, increase the time. Try 45 seconds, then 1 minute. Try harder topics. Talk about your country. Talk about your favorite movie. This builds your stamina. Speaking a foreign language is tiring. It takes mental energy. You need to build your endurance so you don't get tired and start pausing more after a few minutes of conversation. Let's reflect on body language too. Believe it or not, your body can help you stop pausing. Hand gestures can actually help pull the words out of you. If you watch fluent speakers, they often move their hands. The movement of the body seems to be connected to the movement of the speech. If you sit perfectly still, stiff as a statue, your speech often becomes stiff too. Use your hands to emphasize points. Nod your head. Lean forward. This physical engagement keeps the energy up and helps the rhythm of your speech. And what about the listener? Remember that the person listening to you wants you to succeed. They are not judging you as harshly as you judge yourself. They are usually just interested in what you have to say. If you pause, they are waiting patiently. But if you can smile through the pause, it changes everything. If you get stuck, smile, take a breath, say sorry, I lost my train of thought, and start again. The smile relaxes you and relaxes the listener. It turns a painful moment into a human moment. We've already talked about the basics of chunking your words, using fillers like native speakers do, and the importance of not translating in your head. But fluency is a huge topic, and there is so much more to explore. I want to take you further now. I want to look at specific high-pressure situations where we tend to freeze, and I want to give you the exact tools to handle them without that dreaded silence. Let's talk about the psychology of the pause. Have you ever noticed that you speak English much better when you are alone? When you are in the shower or driving your car, you might have whole conversations with yourself that are perfect. You are fluent, you are funny, you are articulate. But the moment you step in front of a native speaker or a teacher, everything falls apart. The pauses come back. Why is that? It is because the stakes feel higher. You feel like you are being tested. To stop pausing, we have to trick our brains into feeling safe. We have to lower the stakes. One mental trick I use with my students is called the good enough rule. When we enter a conversation, we often aim for 100% accuracy. We want an A+ interaction. That pressure creates hesitation because your brain is filtering every word. I want you to aim for 70%. Tell yourself before you speak that it is okay if only 70% of this is perfect. If the other person understands you, that is a win. When you lower your standard just a little bit, you relax. And paradoxically, when you relax, your English gets better and you actually end up hitting 90%. Let's move into a very common situation where pauses kill the conversation. Storytelling. We all love to tell stories about our weekend, our family, or something funny that happened at work. But storytelling is hard because it requires past tenses and a sequence of events. Learners often get stuck trying to remember the sequence. They say, I went to the store, and, pause. Before that, I saw my friend. Pause. Wait, no. This back and forth creates confusion and silence. To fix this, you need to use what I call signpost words. These are words that tell the listener where you are in the story. Words like first, then, after that, suddenly, and finally. These words are like anchors. If you get lost in your sentence, grab a signpost word. For example, imagine you are telling a story about losing your keys. Instead of panicking about the grammar, just focus on the timeline. First, I left my house. Then, I realized my pocket was empty. After that, I looked everywhere. Finally, I found them in the door. Even if your grammar isn't perfect, using first, then, after, that keeps the rhythm moving forward. It stops you from pausing to restructure the whole narrative. Let's practice this right now. I want you to think of the last meal you cooked or ate. We are going to tell the story of that meal using 3 simple signposts: first, then, finally. Take a moment. Ready? First, I chopped the vegetables. Then I fried them in the pan. Finally, I ate them with rice. Do you feel how structured that is? The structure saves you from silence. When you know the next word is then, you don't have to think. You just say then and let the next idea come. Now, let's tackle a terrifying scenario for many English learners: the telephone. Speaking on the phone is much harder than speaking face to face because you cannot see the other person's face. You can't see their lips moving, you can't see their hand gestures, and they can't see you. If there is silence on the phone, it feels twice as long. It feels like the line has gone dead. To stop pausing on the phone, you need to use verbal nods. A verbal nod is a sound you make to show you are still there and you're listening. Sounds like, uh-huh, right, I see, okay, and interesting. If the other person is talking and you are silent, they might stop and ask if you are still there. But if you are the one talking and you need to think, you can use a phrase like, "Let me check that for you," or "bear with me a moment." These are magic phrases for phone calls. If you are looking for a document or trying to remember a date, do not do it in silence. Narrate your action. Say, "I am just looking at my calendar now," or "I am opening the file." This fills the dead air and keeps the connection alive. Let's imagine you are calling to make a reservation at a restaurant. This is a classic B1/B2 task. You call and say, "I would like a table for 2. The receptionist asks, "What time?" You forget your schedule. You pause. The silence stretches. Instead, say, "Let me just check with my partner quickly." Or say, "I think 7 o'clock is good, let me verify." Keep the voice active. Practice these phrases. Let me check. Let me see. Just a moment. Say them out loud now. Let me check. Let me see. Make them your automatic response to any delay. Another major cause of pausing is getting stuck on a grammatical structure halfway through a sentence. You start a sentence with, "I was wondering if," and then you realize you don't know how to finish it correctly. You freeze. You try to back up. You try to fix it. This is the crash. My advice? Abandon the ship. If you start a sentence and realize it is too complicated, stop immediately and start a new, simpler sentence. Use the phrase, This is a very common technique native speakers use. If I start saying, "The reason for the decision regarding the," and I get stuck, I just stop and say, "We decided to change the plan." Is your reset button. It signals to the listener, "Ignore what I just said. Here is the real message." It is much better to restart quickly with than to hang in the middle of a broken sentence for 10 seconds. Let's try it. I want you to start a complicated sentence and then break it. Start saying, "Despite the fact that the weather," stop. Say, "It was raining, but we went anyway." See how much easier that is? You don't have to be a hero with your grammar. You just have to be a communicator. Let's go deeper into the concept of paraphrasing. We touched on this before, but it is the #1 skill for B2 learners moving to C1. Paraphrasing means saying the same thing in a different way. Often we pause because we are married to one specific way of saying something. We want to say, I am exhausted. But we forget exhausted. So we say nothing. We wait for the word to appear. But the word tired is right there. The word sleepy is right there. The phrase, I have no energy, is right there. To train this, we play the taboo game. This is a game where you have to describe a word without saying the word itself. Let's play around together. I want you to describe a library, but you cannot say the word library and you cannot say book. How would you do it? You might pause at first, but then your brain starts to work. You could say, it is a quiet place. People go there to study. You can borrow things to read. There are lots of shelves. You see, you didn't need the word library. You communicated the idea perfectly. Practicing this makes your brain flexible. When you are flexible, you don't pause because if one door is locked, you just go through the window. You never get stuck in the hallway of silence. I want to talk about the physical tension in your jaw and mouth. Sometimes we pause because our mouths literally feel heavy. We are trying so hard to pronounce things correctly that our muscles get tight. When your muscles are tight, it is hard to speak fluently. Before you have a conversation in English or before you do a lesson, do a warm-up. It sounds silly, but athletes warm up before they run. You are a linguistic athlete. Stretch your mouth. Open it wide. Stick out your tongue. Blow air through your lips to make them vibrate like a horse. This loosens the tension. When your physical mechanism is loose, the words flow out faster. You are less likely to stumble and pause. Now let's address the fear of being interrupted. Some learners pause because they are afraid the other person is going to jump in and correct them or take over the conversation. So they speak tentatively. They speak quietly. They leave gaps. But leaving gaps actually invites interruption. If you pause for too long, the other person thinks you are finished, so they start talking. This makes you feel frustrated, like you can never finish your thought. To hold the floor, you need to keep your voice up at the end of the phrase. In English, if your voice goes down at the end of a word, it sounds like a period. It sounds like the end. I went to the store. Down. Finished. But if your voice stays flat or goes up slightly, it sounds like a comma. It means I am not done yet. I went to the store, and I bought some milk, and this intonation keeps the listener waiting for the next part. It buys you time. Even if you pause for a second, if your intonation is up, the listener knows to wait. Try this. Say, I think that is a good idea. Make your voice go down at the end. I think that is a good idea. Now say it as if you have more to say. I think that is a good idea. And feel the difference. The second one commands attention. Use your intonation to protect your speaking space. Let's move to a technique I call the echo method. This is different from shadowing. In shadowing, you speak at the same time. In the echo method, you listen to a sentence, pause the audio, and then repeat it from memory. But here is the trick. You have to say it faster than the speaker did. This trains your brain to process and produce English at speed. Let's try it. I will say a sentence. I want you to listen, and then as soon as I finish, say it back to me quickly. Ready? Here is the sentence. I am trying to improve my English every day. Go. Did you say it? I am trying to improve my English every day. Try to say it all in one breath. This builds what we call phonological loops. It helps your short-term memory hold on to English sounds. Often we pause because we forget the beginning of the sentence by the time we get to the end. The echo method strengthens your memory so you can hold long, complex sentences in your head without them breaking apart. Let's talk about a specific type of word that ruins fluency: the false friend. These are words that look like words in your language but mean something different. You might pause because you are confused about the meaning. For example, if you speak Spanish or French, the word actually is a problem. You might want to use it to mean currently, but in English, it means in reality. This confusion causes hesitation. You stop to check your mental dictionary. My advice is to identify your top 5 false friends. What are the words that always trip you up? Write them down. Learn the correct English equivalent. If you know that actually doesn't mean currently, you won't pause to wonder if you are using it right. You will just use at the moment instead. Clearing up these small confusion points clears the path for fluency. We also need to discuss the environment you are learning in. If you always practice English in a silent room with headphones, you might find it hard to speak in the real world where there is noise. Real life has background noise. There are cars, coffee machines, other people talking. This noise can be distracting and cause you to lose your focus and pause. I want you to train in a noisy environment. Put on the radio in the background while you practice speaking. Go to a park where there are people. Force your brain to focus on your English despite the distractions. This toughens you up. If you can speak fluently while the television is on, you can speak fluently anywhere. Let's look at the concept of the bridge. A bridge is a phrase that connects two ideas when you don't know exactly how they relate yet. Maybe you have an opinion about technology and an opinion about education, and you want to connect them. You can use phrases like, speaking of which, or on that note, or that reminds me. These bridges allow you to jump from one topic to another smoothly. If you finish talking about your job and you want to talk about your holiday, don't just stop and stare. Say, speaking of busy schedules, I am going on holiday soon. You use the bridge. Speaking of busy schedules to connect the two, it makes you sound sophisticated and fluid. Now I want to talk to the perfectionists again. I know you are there. I know you want to get the prepositions right. In, at, on, to, for. These little words cause so much hesitation. Listen to me closely. Native speakers swallow these words. We say them so quickly and quietly that they almost disappear. We don't say I am going to the store. We say I'm going to the store. It sounds like gotta or gonna. If you are pausing to stress the preposition, you are doing too much work. Relax the little words. Glide over them. If you say I am waiting the bus instead of waiting for the bus, people understand. Do not let a 3-letter word stop your flow. Fluency is about the big picture, not the microscopic details. Let's try a visualization exercise. Close your eyes for a moment if you are safe to do so. Imagine a river. The water is flowing over rocks. It doesn't stop for the rocks. It goes around them. It is continuous. It is relentless. Now imagine your speech is that water. The rocks are the difficult words or the grammar rules. Do not stop at the rock. Flow around it. Go over it. Find a different path. Visualize yourself speaking English like a river. This mental image can be very powerful. When you feel yourself getting stuck, think, be the river. Just keep moving. I also want to recommend recording yourself. I know nobody likes the sound of their own voice. It is cringeworthy, but it is the fastest way to cure pauses. Record yourself speaking for 1 minute about your day. Then listen to it. Don't listen for grammar mistakes. Listen for the silence. Where did you pause? Why did you pause? Was it because you didn't know a word? Was it because you were distracted? When you hear your own pauses, you become aware of them. The next time you speak, you will catch yourself before you pause. You will notice the pattern. Awareness is the first step to change. Let's create a challenge for the next few days. I call it the No English Gap Challenge. For one specific conversation a day, maybe with a tutor, a language exchange partner, or even a colleague, make a pact with yourself. Tell yourself, in this conversation, I will not leave a silence longer than 3 seconds. No matter what, if I have to use a filler, I will. If I have to change the subject, I will. If I have to use simple words, I will. But I will not stop. Treat it like a game. If you make it through the conversation without a long, awkward silence, give yourself a reward. Buy that coffee. Watch that show. Positive reinforcement helps your brain learn that fluency is good and silence is unnecessary. We should also talk about the power of questions. Sometimes we pause because we are doing all the talking and we run out of things to say. A conversation is a tennis match. You hit the ball, then they hit the ball. If you hold the ball too long, the game stops. If you feel yourself running out of steam, stop talking and ask a question. Throw the ball back. How about you? What do you think? Have you ever done that? This relieves the pressure on you instantly. While they are answering, you have time to breathe, relax, and prepare your next sentence. Being a good conversationalist is 50% speaking and 50% asking good questions. Use this to your advantage to manage your energy and reduce pauses. Let's practice a scenario where you have to give an opinion. Topics like movies, food, or news. Someone asks, "Did you like the movie?" You might pause because you have mixed feelings. You like the acting, but not the story. Describing mixed feelings is complex. Instead of pausing to construct a complex sentence, like, although the acting was good, the story was bad, start with a simple summary. Start with, it was okay. Then add details. It was okay. The acting was great, but the story was boring. By breaking it down into 3 short bursts, you avoid the mental gymnastics of a complex sentence. Start with the general, then move to the specific. This is a great rule for fluency. General first, details later. What about when you simply forget a name? You are talking about an actor, say Tom Cruise, and his name vanishes. You say, I saw that movie with, pause. Pause. This is painful. Do not wait for the name. Describe him, the guy from Top Gun, the famous actor who does his own stunts, the short guy with the smile. Keep describing until the listener guesses or until you remember. Or just say, I forgot his name, but he was great, and move on. Do not hold the conversation hostage for a name. The name is not the point. The story is the point. Prioritize the story. Let's integrate some pronunciation tips here. Linking sounds. This is technical but practical. When a word ends in a consonant and the next begins with a vowel, link them. An apple sounds like an apple. Pick it up sounds like pick it up. When you link words, you eliminate the pause between them physically. You cannot pause if you are linking. Practice these common links. Work out, look at, think about. Go on. Say them as one word. Work out, look at, think about, goon. This physical connection pulls your speech forward. It is like a train. The cars are connected so they move together. Let's focus on the emotion of confidence. Confidence is not something you have. It is something you practice. You can fake it. Stand up straight. Look people in the eye. Speak with a slightly louder volume than you think you need. When you project your voice, you trick your brain into thinking you are an expert. And when you feel like an expert, you pause less. Hesitation lives in the quiet, shy moments. Fluency lives in the bold, loud moments. Be bold. Even if you are wrong, be boldly wrong. A confident mistake is better than a hesitant correction. As we move deeper into this topic, I want to remind you that your English personality might be different from your native personality. In your first language, you might be quiet and thoughtful. In English, to be fluent, you might need to be a bit more chatty, a bit more direct. That is okay. It is like putting on a mask or a costume. When you speak English, you are the English speaker version of yourself. This version doesn't care about mistakes. This version loves to talk. Embrace this alter ego. It gives you permission to make noise and fill the silence. Think about the content you consume. If you only read textbooks, your brain learns static, frozen English. If you watch reality TV, talk shows, and listen to unscripted podcasts, your brain learns fluid, messy, real English. Watch interviews on YouTube. Notice how celebrities talk. They interrupt, they pause, they use fillers like I mean, and they repeat themselves. They are not perfect. They are effective. Copy their style. Fluency is messy. Textbooks are clean. To stop pausing, you need to get a little messy. Let's do a quick drill on agreeing and disagreeing. These are high-frequency interactions. If someone says, "The weather is nice," you need an automatic response. Don't think. Just have a trigger. Yeah, it is lovely. Absolutely, for sure. If you have these automatic triggers ready, you never pause at the start of a turn. The start is the hardest part. It is like starting a cold car. If you have a starter fluid, a phrase like "absolutely" or "that's true," the engine starts immediately. Once the engine is running, it is easier to keep driving. Build a list of 5 automatic responses for agreeing and 5 for disagreeing. Drill them until you can say them in your sleep. Finally, for this section, I want to talk about the concept of time travel. When you speak, do not think about the word you just said. That is the past. Do not think about the word you are saying right now. That is the present. Think about the phrase you are going to say next. That is the future. Fluent speakers are always living 2 seconds in the future. While their mouth is finishing sentence A, their brain is already planning sentence B. This takes practice. It is a multitasking skill. The chunking we talked about earlier helps this. Because you are speaking in chunks, your brain has free time between chunks to plan ahead. This looking ahead prevents the cliff edge pause where you finish a sentence and have no idea what comes next. Knowing the techniques is only half the battle. The other half is putting them into a routine. You cannot get strong muscles by just reading a book about weightlifting. You have to go to the gym. And you cannot get fluent muscles by just listening to me talk about them. You have to work out, so let's design your fluency workout. We are going to look at a practical day-by-day plan that you can fit into your busy life. Let's imagine it is Monday. Monday is often a busy day, so we need something effective but short. Monday is shadowing day. We talked about shadowing earlier, listening to a native speaker and repeating exactly what they say at the same time. On Monday, I want you to find a 3-minute audio clip. It could be this podcast, it could be a news report, or a scene from a movie. Listen to it once to understand the meaning. Then listen again and speak along with it. Do this 3 times. Focus entirely on the rhythm. Don't worry about the definitions of the words. Just match the speed. If the speaker doesn't pause, you don't pause. If they speed up, you speed up. This wakes up your mouth muscles for the week. It reminds your brain what English sounds like. Then comes Tuesday. Tuesday is narration day. This is where you become the narrator of your own life. For just 10 minutes while you are doing chores, maybe washing the dishes or folding laundry, talk out loud about what you are doing. But here is the rule for Tuesday. You must use connecting words. You cannot say simple sentences like I wash the plate, I dry the plate. You have to say I am washing the plate because it is dirty, and now I am drying it so I can put it away in the cupboard. Force yourself to make long connected chains of sentences. If you get stuck, use a filler like or basically. Basically, I am just cleaning up the kitchen. This bridges the gap between your thoughts and your speech. Wednesday is hump day, so let's do something fun. Wednesday is singing day. I know you might not be a singer. I am not a great singer either. But singing is the ultimate fluency hack. When you sing, you cannot pause. The melody forces you to keep moving. You have to fit the words into the beat. Find a song you like. Find the lyrics online and sing it loud. Notice how the words link together. Notice how you don't have time to translate. You are just producing sound. This is incredible for breaking the habit of hesitation because the music carries you forward. It takes the pressure off your brain and puts it on the rhythm. Thursday is a serious training day. Thursday is timer day. We mentioned this briefly before, but let's make it a routine. Set your phone timer for 60 seconds. Pick a random object in your room, a lamp, a shoe, a plant. Press start. You have to talk about that object for 1 minute without stopping. Describe the color. Describe what it is used for. Describe where you bought it. Describe a memory associated with it. Lie if you have to. Invent a story. Just do not stop speaking until the alarm rings. This trains your brain to retrieve vocabulary under pressure. It simulates the stress of a real conversation, but in a safe environment. Friday is vocabulary application day. By Friday, you are probably tired, but let's do one focus task. Pick 3 signpost words or phrases we learned, like to be honest, moving on, and as a matter of fact. Your goal for Friday is to use these phrases in sentences. Talk to yourself or a partner and force these phrases into the conversation. To be honest, I am ready for the weekend. As a matter of fact, I plan to sleep late. Using these prefabricated chunks gives you islands of safety in your speech. When you start a sentence with a chunk you know perfectly, you gain momentum for the rest of the sentence. Saturday is social day. If you can, speak to a real person, a tutor, a language exchange partner, or a friend. If you don't have anyone, record a voice message for a friend even if you don't send it. Pretend you are telling them about your week. The goal here is communication. Forget grammar, focus on connection, use your body language, smile, enjoy the act of speaking. And finally, Sunday is rest and absorb day. On Sunday, do not force yourself to speak. Just listen. Watch a movie in English with English subtitles. Listen to a podcast while you walk. Let your brain soak up the language passively. Your brain needs rest to consolidate what it has learned. Fluency grows in the quiet moments after the practice. If you follow this cycle for 1 month, 4 weeks, I promise you your pauses will decrease. You will feel lighter when you speak. The words will sit closer to the front of your mouth, ready to jump out. Now let's shift gears. We need to talk about the situations where fluency matters most and where pauses are the most painful. formal situations, job interviews, business presentations, speaking to your boss. In these moments, you cannot just say like and you know every 5 seconds. That sounds unprofessional. So how do we stop pausing while still sounding professional and intelligent? First, let's look at the job interview. The interviewer asks you, "What is your biggest weakness?" This is a hard question. You are nervous. Your heart is beating fast. If you sit there in silence for 10 seconds, it looks like you are unprepared or unconfident, but you need time to think. The secret here is the professional filler. Instead of or use a phrase that acknowledges the question. Here are 3 phrases you must memorize for interviews. Number 1. That is a very interesting question. Let me consider the best example. This sentence takes about 4 seconds to say. That is 4 seconds of thinking time you just bought for yourself, and you sound thoughtful, not stuck. Number 2. I have actually thought about this quite a bit. This implies you are prepared, even while you are searching for the words. Number 3. Let me frame my answer in the context of my last job. This sets a scene and gives your brain a specific place to look for the answer. Also in interviews, silence is actually allowed if it is deliberate. If you are asked a deep question, you can nod, look down at your notes, or look up thoughtfully, take a breath, and then speak. This is a power pause. The difference between a power pause and a panic pause is eye contact and body language. In a panic pause, your eyes dart around the room, you look scared, your shoulders go up. In a power pause, you are calm, you are still, and you look ready. If you need a moment, just say, "Give me a moment to gather my thoughts." That is a perfectly professional English sentence. It shows you care about giving a good answer. Now, what about presentations? You are standing in front of a slide deck. You are explaining a graph. Suddenly, you forget the word for increase. You freeze. Everyone is looking at you. To avoid this, you need to master the art of the vague specific. If you forget the specific technical word, use a vague general word and add a description. If you forget increase, say, "The numbers went up." If you forget fluctuate, say, "The numbers moved up and down." Simple language is often better in presentations anyway, because it is clearer for the audience. Another trick for presentations is the summary restart. If you get halfway through a sentence and get lost, you have forgotten where the verb is, or you have tangled yourself in a complex grammar structure. Stop. Do not try to untangle the knot. Cut the string. Stop the sentence. Take a breath. And say, in other words, and then give the simple version. The revenue projections for the Q4 fiscal year were, pause. In other words, we made more money than we expected. The phrase, in other words, is a lifesaver. It tells the audience, I am going to clarify this for you, but really it is saving you from a grammar crash. Let's talk about being interrupted in a meeting. This causes many non-native speakers to shut down. You are speaking and a colleague jumps in. You stop. Then you don't know how to start again. You wait for a gap that never comes. To stop this, you need to learn how to hold the floor. Use your hand gestures. If someone starts talking while you are talking, put your hand up slightly, palm open, and keep speaking. It is a polite stop sign. And use phrases like, if I could just finish my point, or I will get to that in a second. These phrases are your shield. They protect your speaking time. When you know you can protect your time, you feel less rushed, And when you are less rushed, you pause less. There's a psychological aspect to formal speaking that we need to address: imposter syndrome. B2 learners often feel like frauds in a professional setting. You think, I am not a native speaker, so my ideas are less valuable. This is false. Your English is just the vehicle. Your expertise is the cargo. People are listening for the cargo, not judging the vehicle. If the truck has a few scratches, if your grammar isn't perfect, it doesn't matter as long as the cargo arrives. Shift your focus from how do I sound to what value am I giving? When you focus on helping the listener, your self-consciousness drops and your flow improves. Let's practice a formal scenario together. I am going to ask you a formal question. I want you to use one of the professional fillers we discussed and then give a simple answer. Ready? The question is, how do you handle conflict in the workplace? Did you try it? Did you say, that is an important question, let me give you an example? If you did, well done. You avoided the silence. You looked professional. You bought time. Practice this with common interview questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why do you want this job? Describe a challenge you overcame. Prepare your bridge phrases for these. Now, I want to talk about a specific type of pause that happens to advanced learners. It is the search for nuance pause. You know the word happy, but you don't want to say happy. You want to say ecstatic or thrilled or content. You pause because you are scrolling through a mental thesaurus. While this is good for writing, it is dangerous for speaking. In speaking, speed connects. If you can't find the nuanced word in 1 second, use the basic word and modify it. Say very happy. Say super happy. Say happy, really happy. Get the meaning out. You can always upgrade your vocabulary later. Don't sacrifice the flow of the conversation on the altar of vocabulary. Let's go back to the concept of listening to yourself. I want you to become a detective of your own speech. Record yourself answering a question. Listen back. But this time, I want you to categorize your pauses. Take a piece of paper. Make 2 columns. Column A is content pauses. This is when you paused because you didn't know what to say. You didn't have an idea. Column B is language pauses. This is when you had the idea, but you didn't know the English word or grammar. This distinction is vital. If most of your pauses are content pauses, the problem isn't your English. It is your preparation. You need to read more, think more, and have more opinions. If most of your pauses are language pauses, then you need to work on the techniques we are discussing here: chunking, fillers, and simplification. Diagnosing the type of silence helps you cure it. Here's another advanced exercise: the synonym swap. Pausing often happens when we repeat ourselves and try to find a new word to avoid repetition. Practice taking a simple sentence and saying it in 3 different ways immediately. First, I like coffee. Second, I enjoy coffee. Third, coffee is my favorite drink. Do this rapid-fire drill with everything. First, it is raining. Second, the weather is bad. Third, it is wet outside. This trains your brain to have multiple pathways to the same meaning. If one path is blocked, you forget the word, your brain instantly switches to the other path without a pause. It is like having a GPS that automatically reroutes you when there is a traffic jam. Let's discuss the role of question tags in maintaining flow. Question tags are those little endings like, isn't it? Don't you? Right? They are excellent for fluency because they keep the ball rolling. Instead of stopping a sentence dead, you add a little tail. It is a nice day, isn't it? This invites the other person to speak immediately, which takes the pressure off you. It creates a smooth handover. If you just say, "It is a nice day," and stop, there is a micro silence where the other person wonders if you are done. The question tag acts like a baton in a relay race. Pass the baton smoothly. I also want to touch on the translation delay regarding numbers and dates. For some reason, numbers are the last thing to become fluent. You might be C1 level, but when you have to say 1995 or $453, you pause to translate. This is because numbers are processed in a different part of the brain. To fix this, you need to drill numbers separately. When you see a car license plate, say the numbers in English. When you look at the price of milk, say it in English. When you look at the time, say it. Drill these until they are instant. Do not let a simple number be the rock that stops your river. We are building a comprehensive system here. We have the daily workout. We have the professional strategies. We have the diagnostic tools. But there is one thing that holds it all together: breath. I want to return to breath because in high-pressure situations, we forget to breathe. When you are nervous in an interview, you take shallow breaths. This signals panic to your brain. Your brain then shuts down the language centers to focus on survival. This is why you go blank. This is why you pause. Before you speak in a high-stakes moment, take a box breath. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Do this twice. It resets your nervous system. It tells your brain, we are safe. We can access the English files now. It sounds spiritual, but it is biological. You cannot speak fluently if your body is in fight or flight mode. Calm the body and the words will follow. Let's imagine a scenario. You are at a dinner party with native speakers. Everyone is talking fast. They are interrupting each other. They are laughing. You want to join in, but by the time you construct your sentence, the topic has changed. This is the speed gap. You pause because you are trying to be too polite and too complete. In these fast situations, use short bursts. Do not try to make speeches. Throw in short phrases. No way. Really? That is crazy. I agree. Me too. These short bursts keep you in the rhythm of the conversation. They signal that you are present. Once you have thrown in a few short bursts, you will find it easier to launch into a longer sentence because you are already part of the flow. Don't be the observer on the sidelines. Jump in with the little words. It is like double Dutch jump rope. You have to find the rhythm and jump in. You can't wait for the rope to stop. As we move toward even more advanced mastery, we have to talk about a major cause of pausing that we haven't touched on yet. Other people. Specifically, other people's accents. You might be perfectly fluent when you listen to me. My voice is clear. My speed is controlled. But then you speak to someone from Scotland or Texas or Liverpool or someone who is also a second language speaker with a heavy accent, and suddenly you freeze. You don't understand them, so you panic. You pause because you are trying to decode their sounds. Listen to me. Not understanding someone is not a failure of your English. It happens to native speakers too. If I speak to someone with a very thick accent, I also have to ask them to repeat themselves. The difference is I don't pause and look terrified. I handle the breakdown fluently. To stop pausing in these moments, you need clarification tools. Do not just say, "What?" or "Sorry." repeatedly. That feels awkward. Use full sentences to manage the situation. I am sorry. I didn't quite catch that last part. Could you slow down a little bit? The connection is bad. Even if the connection is fine, blaming the connection or the noise is a polite white lie that saves face for everyone. There is a technique called the echo question, which is brilliant for this. If someone says, I'm going to mumble on Saturday, and you miss the middle part, do not freeze. Echo the part you did hear and make it a question. You are going where on Saturday? This keeps the conversation moving instantly. It shows you were listening. You just miss one detail. It is much better than a 10-second silence while you try to guess the word. Be proactive. Be the one who fixes the communication gap. Now let's move to the summit of fluency, humor. Many B2 and C1 learners pause awkwardly when someone makes a joke. You are not sure if it was a joke, or you understand the words, but you don't understand why it is funny. So you sit there, stone-faced, while everyone else laughs. This silence can feel isolating. First, relax. Humor is cultural. It is the hardest thing to learn. If you don't understand a joke, do not fake a laugh. That is dangerous because they might ask you a follow-up question. Instead, use the curious learner approach. Smile and say, I think that was a joke, but I missed the reference. Explain it to me. This is a power move. It turns an awkward pause into a cultural lesson. People love explaining their culture or their jokes. By asking them to explain, you are keeping the conversation flowing and you are building a connection. You are showing confidence. You are saying, my English is strong enough to ask about what I don't know. And what about making jokes? Don't try to be a stand-up comedian. Use observational humor. Just state the obvious in a funny way. If it is raining incredibly hard, just look at it and say, lovely weather for a barbecue, isn't it? Sarcasm is very common in English. It is simple. It requires no complex vocabulary, but it signals high-level fluency. It breaks the ice. Let's talk about the plateau. You might feel like you have stopped improving. You speak, but you use the same words every day. You pause because you are bored with your own voice. You want to say something new, but you can't find it. To break the plateau and stop the boredom pauses, you need to consume to create. You cannot output what you haven't input. If you want to speak about politics without pausing, you must read about politics. If you want to speak about cooking without pausing, you must watch cooking shows. I want you to try the topic of the week strategy. Pick a topic you are bad at. Maybe it is technology. For 1 week, read 3 articles about tech. Listen to 1 tech podcast. Write down 5 key verbs used in that industry. Then, force yourself to have a conversation about it. You will find that because the vocabulary is fresh in your mind, the pauses disappear. You are priming the pump. You are loading the gun before you pull the trigger. Fluency is often just preparation in disguise. Now I want to address the fear of losing it. Many of you worry that if you stop studying, you will start pausing again. And yes, language decay is real, but you don't need to study for hours a day to maintain fluency. You just need micro doses. Can you listen to English for 5 minutes while you brush your teeth? Can you read 1 page of a book before bed? Can you talk to yourself for 2 minutes in the shower? These micro doses keep the neural pathways open. They keep the rust away. Consistency is far more important than intensity. A marathon runner doesn't run a marathon every day. They just go for a light jog to keep their legs moving. Be a light jogger with your English. Let's go deeper into the emotional rhythm of English. Sometimes we pause because we are speaking in a flat, monotone voice. When you speak like a robot, your brain works like a robot. It processes data slowly. When you put emotion into your voice, you activate the emotional centers of your brain, which are faster and more intuitive. If you are telling a sad story, slow down and lower your voice. If you are sharing exciting news, speed up and raise your pitch. Match your speed to the emotion. This is natural variation. When you focus on the feeling of what you are saying, the words often come automatically. It is strange, but true. If you are angry, you rarely pause to find the word for angry. You just shout. Channel that energy. If you are passionate about a topic, let that passion drive the car. Do not hold back your personality. A fluent speaker is an expressive speaker. We also need to talk about the interjection. Native speakers are noisy listeners. We say things like, "Oh, really? No way, you're kidding. Go on." If you are a silent listener, you are making it harder for yourself to speak when it is your turn. Because going from total silence to full speech is a hard jump. It is easier to jump from active listening noises to full speech. It is a smaller step. Keep your engine idling with these little interjections. It keeps your vocal cords warmed up. It keeps you in the loop. Practice this. Next time you listen to English, even this podcast, say, "Right, exactly, I see," in the gaps. Be a noisy listener. Now we are going to do something special. We are going to do the grand simulation. I want you to imagine we are walking through a whole day. I am going to throw situations at you. I will describe the scene, and then I will give you a prompt. I want you to answer out loud immediately, without pausing. Use the fillers. Well, actually. Use the bridges. Speaking of which, use the vague words if you have to. Just keep flowing. Are you ready? Let's take a deep breath. In and out. Let's go. Scene 1. You are at a coffee shop. It is noisy. The barista looks busy and a bit stressed. She looks at you and says, "What can I get you?" You want a vanilla latte with oat milk, but you suddenly forget the word for oat. Don't pause. Go. Did you do it? Did you say, "I'll have a vanilla latte with the non-dairy milk, the plant milk"? Or did you say, "I'll have a vanilla latte, the one without cow's milk"? If you described it, you won. You didn't freeze. Scene 2. You get your coffee and sit down. A stranger sees you reading a book. They ask, "Is that book any good? I was thinking of reading it." You haven't finished it yet, and it's a bit complicated. Go. Did you use a filler? Well, to be honest, I just started it. Or, actually, it is a bit heavy, but I am enjoying it. Good. No silence. Scene 3. You arrive at work. Your boss catches you in the hallway. He looks serious. He asks, "Where is that report you promised me?" You completely forgot to do it. Panic, but don't pause. Handle it. Go. This was a test of pressure. Did you say, "I am so sorry, it slipped my mind"? Or, "Actually, I am working on it right now"? Or even, "That is the first thing on my list for today"? Any answer is better than looking at him in terrified silence. Scene 4. You are at lunch with colleagues. They are talking about movies. One colleague turns to you and says, "What is the best movie you have ever seen?" Your mind goes blank. You can't remember a single movie title. Go. Did you use a bridge? That is a tough question. There are so many. Or did you flip it? I am terrible at picking favorites. What is yours? Flipping the question is a master move. It saves you every time. Scene 5. It is the end of the day. You are exhausted. You run into a friend on the bus. She asks, "Do you want to come to my party tonight?" You really don't want to go, but you don't want to be rude. You need to say no politely. Go. Did you sigh and say, "Oh, I would love to, but I am absolutely beaten"? Or, "I wish I could, but I need to recharge"? Soften the blow, but keep it flowing. How did you do? If you stumbled, that is okay. The point of this simulation is to show you that fluency is not about perfect grammar. In none of those situations did you need the present perfect continuous tense. You needed social survival skills. You needed to breathe, smile, and connect. Replay this section. Do it again. Try different answers. Challenge yourself to be faster, to be smoother, to be more Jessica. As we continue, I want to address some very specific traps that even advanced learners fall into. We call these fluency traps. These are specific grammatical structures or social situations that are so tricky they make us freeze up even if we know the vocabulary. We are going to open up the engine of your English and grease the gears that are still grinding. Let's start with the biggest fluency killer in the English grammar book, the conditionals. You know them. The if sentences. If I go, if I went, if I had gone. I see B2 learners pause for 5, sometimes 10 seconds, trying to calculate the algebra of these sentences. You think, okay, if the first part is past perfect, the second part must be would have plus the past participle. By the time you figure that out, the conversation is over. To stop pausing with conditionals, we need to stop treating them like math equations and start treating them like chunks of music. We need to learn the melody of the if. Let's look at the second conditional. This is for imaginary situations right now. If I had $1 million, I would buy a boat. The chunk you need to master is if I had. Say that with me. If I had. Do not think about the past tense. Just think of if I had as a single block. That means imagining possession. Now, the second half always has a partner. The partner of if in this case is would. They are married. You cannot separate them. If, would. Practice this rhythm. Da 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 da. If I had time, I would go. If I knew her, I would call. If I were you, I would go. I would stop. I want you to drill this structure until it feels like a song. When you hear if I were, your mouth should automatically prepare the word would. You shouldn't have to choose it. It should be waiting there by reflex. Now, let's look at the scary one. The third conditional. Regrets about the past. If I had known, I would have told you. This causes massive pauses because it is so long. Would have told. That is 3 words just for the verb. Native speakers do not say would have told clearly. We smash it together. We say woulda. Listen closely. Woulda. W-O-U-L-D-A. It's not a real word in writing, but it is a real sound in speaking. If you try to pronounce every letter in I would have told you, you will stumble. If you say I woulda told you, you flow. Let's practice the woulda flow. If I'd known, I woulda called. If I'd seen him, I woulda stopped. If I'd been there, I woulda helped. Do you feel how much faster that is? You are cutting the syllable count in half. By embracing these reductions, you stop the pause because your mouth has less work to do. You are not being lazy, you are being efficient. Let's move away from grammar and talk about a social fluency trap. the polite disagreement. This is a minefield. Someone says, "I think this plan is perfect." You disagree. But you don't want to be rude. You pause because you are searching for a way to be nice. You think, "How do I say you are wrong without making them angry?" The silence stretches out and it looks like you agree because you aren't saying anything. To stop pausing here, you need softener phrases. These are automatic phrases that cushion the blow. My favorite is, "I see what you mean, but," memorize this. "I see what you mean, but," it buys you time, it validates them, and it sets up your disagreement. Another one is, "That is a valid point, however." Or, "I am not sure, I entirely agree." Let's simulate a meeting. I am your colleague. I say, "We should cancel the project." You think that is a bad idea. Don't pause. Don't just say no. Use a softener. Ready? "We should cancel the project." Go. Did you say, "I see where you are coming from, but I think we should wait"? Or, "That is an interesting idea, but have we considered the cost?" The key is the transition. The pause happens when you try to jump from their opinion to your opinion without a bridge. The softener is the bridge. Now, let's talk about emotional fluency. This is often neglected. We learn how to order coffee, but we don't learn how to say we are frustrated, overwhelmed, or delighted. When you have a strong emotion but no words for it, you go silent. You might just make a noise like ugh or sigh. We want to turn that sigh into speech. We tend to overuse the word good and bad. "I feel bad." That is too vague. And because it is vague, your brain keeps searching for a better word, causing a pause. Let's build an emotion menu. Instead of happy, have thrilled and pleased ready. Instead of sad, have upset and down ready. Instead of angry, have annoyed and frustrated ready. Here is a practice technique, the "I feel because" drill. Throughout your day, check in with yourself. I feel tired because I didn't sleep. I feel anxious because I have a meeting. I feel relieved because I finished the work. Connecting the feeling to the reason creates a complete thought. Often we pause because we state the feeling, "I am sad," and then we get stuck on the why. By practicing the because link, you train your brain to explain itself immediately. I want to do a quick Q&A session, simulating questions I get from listeners just like you to address some real-life problems. Imagine a listener named Marco asks, "Jessica, I speak English well in the morning, but after a long day at work, when I am tired, my English falls apart. I pause constantly. I forget basic words. It is so frustrating. What can I do?" Marco, I want to tell you, this is not just you. This is biology. We call this cognitive fatigue. Speaking a second language requires a lot of energy from the prefrontal cortex of your brain. It is like running. If you run a marathon in the morning, you cannot sprint in the evening. Your legs are tired. Your brain gets tired too. When your brain is tired, the translation filter becomes slow. The pauses get longer because you just don't have the fuel to find the words quickly. So how do we fix this? You cannot stop being tired, but you can change your strategy. When you are tired, you must switch to low power mode. Think of your phone. When the battery is at 10%, the screen gets darker and apps run slower to save energy. You need to do this with your English. When you are exhausted, stop trying to use complex grammar. Stop trying to use idioms. Give yourself permission to speak in simple, short sentences. Subject, verb, object. I am tired. I want food. Let's go home. Do not fight the fatigue. If you try to speak C1 English when you have A1 energy, you will crash and pause. Accept the fatigue, simplify your language, and you will find that the flow continues, just at a simpler level. It is better to be simple and fluent than complex and silent. Let's move to another common issue. This one comes from a listener we will call Lynn. Lynn says, "Jessica, I pause because I am terrified of pronunciation. I know the word, but I am not sure where the stress is. Is it photograph or photograph? While I am wondering about the stress, I stop speaking." This is the stress freeze. English is a stress-timed language, which means the rhythm depends on which syllables are loud and which are quiet. Getting it wrong can be embarrassing, so we hesitate. Here's my advice for Lynn and for you. If you are 80% sure, just say it. If you say the stress wrong, people will usually still understand you from the context. But if you don't say anything, they definitely won't understand you. However, to fix this permanently, you need to become a stress detective. When you learn a new word, do not just learn the spelling, learn the musical shape of the word. Is it da-da-da or da-da-da? Use your hands. When you practice the word important, tap your hand on the table for the stress. Important, important. Connect the physical movement to the sound. Your body has a better memory than your brain. If you tap the rhythm, you won't pause because your hand will know what to do. Also realize that native speakers swallow unstressed vowels. We call this the schwa sound. It sounds like In the word banana, we don't say ba-na-na. We say boo-na-na. The first and last A are weak. If you are pausing because you are trying to pronounce every vowel perfectly, you are working too hard. Be lazy with the weak vowels. It is actually more fluent. Relax your mouth, use the schwa, and the pauses will melt away. Let's talk about a very specific physical problem. A listener named Ahmed writes, "My tongue literally gets twisted. I try to speak fast to be fluent, but my tongue trips over the sounds, and then I have to stop and start again. It ruins my flow." Ahmed, this is a mechanical issue. Your brain is faster than your mouth. Your mouth muscles are not conditioned for the gymnastics of English. You need to go to the mouth gym. You need tongue twisters, but not just for fun, for training. I want everyone to try this right now. We are going to look at the TH and S sounds. These are fluency killers. Try to say, "She sells seashells by the seashore." It is hard, right? If you try to say that fast in a conversation, you will pause. Practice this phrase every morning while you are making coffee. Start slow, enunciate, then speed up. Another great exercise is the cork exercise. This is used by actors. Put a wine cork or your thumb or a pen between your teeth. Bite down gently. Now, try to speak English or read a paragraph. You have to work extra hard to make the sounds clear because your jaw is blocked. Do this for 2 minutes. Then, take the cork out and speak normally. You will feel like your mouth is flying. It will feel light and incredibly fast. The pauses disappear because your muscles are suddenly overpowered for the task. It is like training with heavy weights and then taking them off. We also have a question about reading versus speaking. A student asks, "I can read out loud perfectly without pausing, but when I speak from my head, I pause." Why is the connection broken? When you read, the words are provided. The generation part of your brain is off. When you speak, you have to generate and articulate at the same time. This is multitasking. To bridge this gap, you need to practice retelling. Read a short paragraph, maybe 3 sentences, out loud. Then look away from the paper and try to say the same information in your own words immediately. This forces your brain to take the input, reading, and switch instantly to output, generation. It is the missing link. Do this with news headlines. Read the headline. Look away. Tell the imaginary person next to you what happened. The president is visiting France. This rapid switching builds the neural pathways that connect your passive vocabulary to your active voice. Let's try a speed drill to finish this section. This is for everyone who feels their brain is too slow. I want you to look around your room. I am going to give you 10 seconds. I want you to name as many things as you can. Do not worry about full sentences. Just nouns: lamp, table, rug, window, pen, cat. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Stop. How many did you get? 5? 10? Now I want you to do it again, but this time you have to add an adjective to every noun. Blue lamp, wooden table, dirty rug, open window. Ready? Go. Stop. This is harder, right? This forces your brain to retrieve 2 words at once. It builds collocation speed. Collocations are words that naturally go together. When you stop pausing between the adjective and the noun, you sound instantly more fluent. Practice this adjective-noun sprint whenever you are waiting for a bus or boiling the kettle. I want to leave you with one final concept: the fluency avatar. Sometimes it is hard to be confident when you are just you. You carry all your past insecurities. I want you to invent a character. Imagine an English-speaking version of yourself. Give them a name if you want. Let's say my English avatar is Alice. Alice is confident. Alice doesn't care about grammar. Alice talks loud. When you have to make a phone call or speak in a meeting, pretend you are playing the role of Alice. Putting on a mask psychologically distances you from the fear of failure. If Alice makes a mistake, who cares? It is just a character. Actors do this all the time. Fake it until you become it. Today, for our grand finale, I want to talk about the after. I want to talk about what happens now. Because the goal of this series was not just to help you speak English better, it was to help you live better. Fluency is not a trophy you put on a shelf. It is a key. It unlocks doors. Today we are going to talk about which doors it unlocks, how to walk through them, and most importantly, how to make sure you never ever lose the keys. Let's talk about your career first. In the global marketplace, English is the currency of opportunity. But there is a difference between writing English B2 on your resume and actually being fluent in a room. When you stop pausing, your authority goes up. Think about a negotiation. If you are negotiating a salary or a contract and you pause for 5 seconds to find a word, you signal uncertainty. Subconsciously, the other person feels they have the upper hand. But when you use the techniques we discussed, when you use fillers like, "let me consider that," or when you use bridges like, "from my perspective," you maintain control. You signal that you are an equal player. Fluency allows you to be a leader, not just a participant. Many of my students stay in junior roles because they are afraid to speak up in meetings. They have brilliant ideas, but by the time they construct the perfect sentence, the meeting has moved on. The good enough rule we learned, aiming for communication, not perfection, allows you to throw your idea on the table while it is still fresh. It allows you to be visible. And in business, visibility is everything. I want you to visualize your next meeting. I want you to visualize yourself interrupting politely with a phrase like, "Can I just add something here?" And then delivering your point without hesitation. That is the moment your career trajectory changes. Now let's talk about travel. There is tourist English and there is traveler English. Tourist English is transactional. One ticket, please. Where is the bathroom? You can do this with pauses. It is fine. But traveler English is transformational. It is sitting in a hostel in Tokyo or a cafe in Berlin and talking to someone from a completely different culture. To do this, you need flow. You need to be able to tell stories. When you stop pausing, you stop being an outsider looking in. You become part of the scene. You can make jokes. You can ask deep questions. You can understand the nuance of what people are telling you. The serendipity of travel, those magical, unplanned moments, only happens when you can say yes to a conversation without fear. I want you to build this fluency so that the next time you travel, you are not just seeing the sights. You are meeting the souls of the people there. But Jessica, you might ask, how do I keep this up? I can't listen to podcasts for 2 hours every day forever. And you are right. You shouldn't have to. We need to transition you from study mode to lifestyle mode. In study mode, English is a subject you work on. It is painful. It requires discipline. In lifestyle mode, English is just the air you breathe. It is the environment you live in. To maintain your fluency without studying, you need to change your content diet. Think about the media you consume, the news, the YouTube videos, the Netflix series, the books. Stop consuming them in your native language. Switch them all to English. This sounds drastic, but it is the only way to maintain C1 fluency effortlessly. If you love cooking, watch cooking shows in English. If you love football, listen to the commentary in English. By doing this, you are getting hours of input every day without studying. You are just living your life, but the soundtrack is English. This constant input keeps the chunking patterns fresh in your brain. It keeps the melody of the language in your ear. So when you open your mouth to speak, the words are right there on the surface. I also want to suggest the social hobby strategy. Find a community that operates in English. It could be an online gaming clan. It could be a coding forum. It could be a virtual book club. It could be a Reddit community about gardening. When you engage with a community, you are using English to solve problems and build relationships. The focus shifts from how is my grammar to how do I beat this level or how do I fix my plants. When the focus shifts to the task, the anxiety about the language disappears and the fluency becomes natural. You are learning by doing, which is the most permanent form of learning. Let's talk about the concept of the plateau. You might reach a point in the next 6 months where you feel like you aren't improving anymore. You are not learning 10 new words a day. You aren't having those aha moments. Do not panic. The plateau is actually a good sign. It means you are stable. It means your English has settled into a solid, usable state. Think of it like driving. When you first learn to drive, you learn something new every day. How to park, how to merge. It is exciting and terrifying. But after 5 years, you just drive. You don't get better at driving every day. You just are a driver. That is where we want to get with English. We want you to stop being a learner and start being a speaker. A speaker doesn't worry about progress every day. A speaker just uses the tool to get the job done. Accept the plateau as a sign of maturity, not stagnation. However, to keep the rust away, I recommend a yearly tune-up. Once a year, maybe in January, give yourself a challenge a 30-day speaking challenge, or book 5 lessons with a high-level tutor just to check your bad habits. We all develop bad habits over time. Maybe you start mumbling, or you start using the same adjective too much. A quick tune-up keeps the machine running smoothly. Now I want to address the identity shift one last time. This is the deepest part of fluency. When you speak a second language without pausing, you actually change who you are. You develop a second self. My English self is a little different from my native self. She is perhaps a bit more direct, a bit louder, a bit more open. Do not fight this. Embrace it. Some people feel like they are faking it when they speak English fluently because it feels different from their normal personality. It is not fake. It is an expansion of who you are. You are becoming a bigger version of yourself, a version that can connect with billions more people, a version that can access the world's knowledge. Love your English self. Nurture her. Let her speak. As we close this series, I want to leave you with a final visualization exercise. I want you to close your eyes one last time if you can. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. You are at a dinner party. The room is full of people from all over the world. There is laughter. There is music. You are holding a glass and you are in the middle of a circle of people. You are telling a story. Everyone is listening. They are smiling. You are not thinking about grammar. You are not translating. You are not worried about the next word. You are just flowing. You feel light. You feel funny. You feel completely at ease. Hold that image. That is not a fantasy. That is your future. That is where you are going. Every time you practiced a filler, every time you used a chunk, every time you push through the fear of a pause, you were walking toward that dinner party. You are almost there. I want to ask you a favor. If this series has changed the way you think about English, if it has helped you find your voice, please do not keep it a secret. Share this podcast with a friend who is struggling. Post it on your LinkedIn or your Instagram. Leave us a review. Your support is what keeps us going. It helps us create more content to help you grow. And finally, I want to say thank you to you. Thank you for your time, which is your most valuable asset. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for your courage. It takes bravery to learn a language. It takes bravery to speak up when you are not sure. You are brave, and I am proud of you. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready. You are ready now. Open your mouth, take a breath, and let the words flow. I am Jessica. This has been English in Advance. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep speaking, keep smiling, and keep moving forward. Goodbye.